The setting is a field in the Preseli Mountains down in Pembrokeshire. The date, a January evening, 1962. The time, let's say it's getting near to opening time. And for these fellows, a well-earned glass of beer.
How's the weather up there?
The engineering enterprise, there down in Wales to finish, engages many skills and brains. Not only from Wales, but like these men themselves, from places very far afield. This man, for instance. He's an engineer in Hayes in Middlesex, and he too has spent the day on problems connected with Preseli. Just as for another man in Cambridge, this evening marks the end of one more day towards completion of the schedule down in Pembrokeshire. Quite near that field in Wales, a farmer by the name of Mr. Jenkins also decides the day is done. Lonely farms are not quite as once they were, unlike his bardic ancestors who once created pictures in the fire on wild and stormy nights. Mr. Jenkins sometimes watches pictures of another kind, in company with millions more. Pictures 2 yards from the fire, transmitted from places far away. Pictures that are part of the pattern of a shrinking world, yet they enlarge the world that Mr. Jenkins lives in. This man, with his colleagues, helps to put such pictures on the air.
Switch on the television.
Right, stand by, everyone.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Cue Grams and take it.
Good evening. Here is the news from ITN. From Cape Canaveral, it's just been reported that following Colonel Glenn's success yesterday, another American spaceflight is to be made in the spring, and further orbits will be made every 2 months this year, and next year, a two-man space ride that will last a week. Meanwhile, Colonel Glenn's in excellent shape. This was announced today on Grand Turk Island in the Bahamas, where he was flown last night after being pulled from the Atlantic. He's spending 48 hours on the island having medical checks and being interrogated, and then
stand by, tell us in 5
to Cape Canaveral on Friday for a hero's welcome.
Through all the lengthy preparations.
For a moment, film takes over, and in the studio, the newscaster and his colleagues can ease the tension until it's time to take his cue.
I'm just looking at old Laurie there with his etchings. Are you in a low or a high mood today, Laurie?
Always high. We've got to be. Miserable stories we put out.
Lou 7, take 1. Cue Hugh.
And now for more down-to-earth matters, pay. The big railway unions today formally accepted Dr. Beeching's 3% pay offer. It'll come into force on April the 1st and will mean between 5 and 8 shillings a week more for 420,000 railway workers. West Germany. A British lance corporal today saved a German village.
The news is networked to the nation, an oft-repeated exercise that millions of people by now have learned to take for granted.
The pile-up of unfinished cars at Ford's Dagenham has begun to hit production.
To keep that sound and image on the air, whole teams of men and women are at work in studios and transmitting stations up and down the country.
This has created 2,700 workers in the body and assembly shops were today sent home.
How old are they all?
7 weeks now.
And yours?
Now, on matters abroad,
7 weeks. Felix are about 6 weeks.
the Commonwealth Secretary, Mr. Duncan Sands, this afternoon made a personal report to the Prime Minister after flying home from his visit to Rhodesia and Nyasaland.
Right, Bob. There's a bit more brightness on that. Yeah.
There was no leakage of information
That's
about
fine, lovely.
ICI's takeover bid for...
You just back from Spain then, George, are you? Yes, I went there in March, this year. It's rather like our midsummer, actually.
Formerly of Scotland Yard.
All built, equipped and manned in a few brief years from scratch. The transmitters stretch from Mount Eagle, Inverness, to Carradon Hill near Plymouth, from Black Hill near Edinburgh to Dover, with Emley Moor in Yorkshire, Winter Hill in Lancashire, and others in between. a technical achievement of some magnitude that is now almost complete.
Finals of the FA Cup. At Hillsborough tonight, they beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-0 in the replay. And now finally, a story of the man who jumped through windows. Late last night, a woman was sitting quietly in her kitchen in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when the window gave way with a crash, and a man came flying through onto the floor. Within the next 20 minutes, he did the same thing at 2 more houses in the area. By this time, the police were alerted all over the neighborhood, and the man was finally caught after having dived through yet another first-floor window. He told the police he was suffering from a terrific headache. And that's all for the moment from ITN.
Switch it off. There's nothing much on the news tonight.
Clear sound and vision. Thank you very much, everyone. Well done. Thank you.
Nothing on the news? Well, at least it took some active teamwork to get it to his home. However, Mr. Jenkins' links with television go further than his set. Some television men arrived one morning, agreed a price, and bought one of his fields. In the months that followed, they began to change its face. By then, they'd had to change the face of other fields in England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, in Kent and Londonderry, Cornwall, Aberdeen, so that they might bring television to the people. For that was what they came for, to erect yet another transmitting station, this time on a bleak hillside in Pembrokeshire. Only those who worked there and those whose job it was to make periodic visits of inspection can know how bleak it could be in the Brazilian mountains in the winter. A station to be built, a mast to be erected, and a road to be laid where there was none before. Through all kinds of weather, the work went on, and there were moments when the weather won. And in due course, the mast, 700 feet of mast, slender, tough, to send its beams across the countryside from that field on Mr. Jenkins' farm, which already had its television, to other farms where it was yet to come. So, as the seasons changed and Mr. Jenkins worked upon his fields, he was not the only person on the landscape. He grew quite used to his new neighbors. After all, he'd seen them working day in, day out to achieve what they had come to do. The mast goes up, resilient, strong. The steelwork calculated and constructed to yield a little, the better to withstand fierce winds. And all of it supported on a single small ball bearing. If one should ask why all this came about, the answer's in the Television Act. For that, let's go to London, to the home of the Independent Television Authority. There shall be an authority whose function shall be to provide television broadcast services of high quality for so much of the United Kingdom, the Isle of Man and the Channel Islands as may from time to time be reasonably practicable. Well, we're engineers employed by the authority, and that meant we were busy. The Act goes on to say, the programs shall be provided by program contractors who, under contracts with the authority, have the right and duty to provide programs to be broadcast by the authority. That meant transmitting stations. 3 in 1956, 8 by 1958, 17 by 1961, and by the end of 1962, 22. The sites were chosen, stations built and masts erected. Stations like those already mentioned and others: Selkirk, Burnhope, Coldbeck, Black Mountain over here in Northern Ireland, Lichfield, St Hilary near Cardiff, Croydon over here, Stockland Hill to the west, Chillerton Down, Isle of Wight, and Fremont Point in Jersey, so that throughout the land people might see the programs provided by independent television. As here at Mendlesham in Suffolk, each morning the transmitters start their work. Transmitters must be kept in trim and operated so that people's pictures are reliable and clear. The authority has men highly trained, worth looking after, well qualified to do just that. They it is who see to it that no program time is lost. And the record stands at 0.01%. So that's how we came to be building yet another transmitting station, this time at Presili down in Wales. Well, here's Presili, placed in the best spot to serve the shaded areas on this map. The signal beamed across the Bay of Cardigan to where a further mast will pass the signal on. Then up to Anglesey. From there again passed on across to Flintshire further east. In this way, we skirt the mountains grouped in central Wales. The whole exercise fraught with technical problems. Why did we choose to build on that particular field? Certainly, the choice was neither casual nor accidental. Surveys are conducted on the ground and up aloft. A balloon, for instance, is sent up and signals are transmitted. It's one of the methods by which we get the information that we need. Then there's an aerial to be designed and built. This 50 feet of steel will find its place on top of 700 feet of mast down at Presili. At the moment, it's being tested in the field, and the field's in Hayes in Middlesex. A signal transmitted from a mile away helps give the data that's required. It has to be designed and beamed correctly, feeding areas to the south, North Wales here, avoiding certain continental channels, for example, and fulfilling many other technical requirements. It looks complex, as indeed it is, but one example of the scientific know-how that goes to bring a picture to the home of millions. In Hayes, and as here in Cambridge, much brain and skill combine to conceive and build the equipment that is needed. And here is the heart of the new station, the transmitter, almost ready now for its long and arduous journey down to Wales. Now, in the last few weeks, the station takes on shape and meaning, and things begin to fit as they were planned to do. The aerial has arrived from Middlesex and is ready for its journey up aloft. The final preparations are in hand, and gradually, neatness and a sense of order emerge from what looked once apparent chaos, deep in mud. Comes the moment when the aerial's up, 750 feet above the mountains, waiting for the signal that very soon will come. Meanwhile, inside, everything's made ready for the transmitter that will provide that signal. The equipment begins to find its place. Scientific knowledge and much application, much brawn and sweat have come together on that field in the Priscilla Mountains. So that when the moment comes and the station's on the air, a man 300 miles away can say with confidence, knowing he'll be heard and seen.
Good evening. Here's the news from ITN and a special welcome to our new viewers in North and West Wales. Noswaith chi, dyma'r newyddion o ITN a chroeso i'n ffrindiau newydd yn y Gogledd ac yn Orllewin Cymru.
And when this happens, it means that yet another section of the country has been reached. The farms and villages and townships in the north and west of Wales. Llain, Carnarvon, Denbigh, Anglesey today, Strabane and Inniskillen, and places even more remote tomorrow. Like Wick and John O'Groats and Orkney in the very north of Scotland, transmitting stations built to bring the outside world to lonely places and make complete the network for a nation.